Right, yeah, so we're going to talk about why we use carbs or more carbs around the training window and what sort of types of carbs that we would be having. Now, you probably see on most of your plans, they are set up in a specific manner for recovery purposes and also performance purposes. So why do we always have more carbohydrates around the training? So like your pre and your post, and sometimes even in your intro if you're in an off season and you've got high enough carbs. So if we start off with the pre-meal. So the pre-meal is basically the setup for getting your energy levels up, getting your fullness of glycogen as well and glucose. So if we break things down, so when you digest carbohydrates, it is converted into glucose, which is your primarily source of energy. What doesn't get converted is energy, doesn't get used as energy, is then diverted and converted into glycogen, which is stored within your muscle tissue. Now, that is what creates the fullness of the muscle, and so you've got your energy source and you've got your fullness to the muscle, which is able to perform basically. So when we're looking at across the board the day, we want to have a majority of our carbs pre-meal basically and post. Now when we're having our pre-meal, the types of food sources that you will be having are typically slow releasing carbohydrates, depending on the time frames of your routine, of your day. If you can only have certain amounts of meals per day or something like that, or your appetite allows you to, so you might have a big bulk of carbohydrates. So you may look at more like slow releasing carbohydrates. So things like your potatoes, your pastas, your rices, oats, your breads, bagels, you name it, that type of stuff, right? Then once you've got those sort of set in place, then you would have a look at your intra-workout drink, which is what you might see on your plan, which is where we normally use some fast-acting carbohydrates or fat absorption carbohydrates, which are normal kind of like simple sugars or something like that, so but healthy sugars, so like a maltodextrin, a cyclic dextrin, or dextrose powders are usually what we would tend to go for, right? Now that is to get some more carbs during your training window. If your off season is super heavy in terms of calories and carbs and you need to get a little bit more in, that's going to help with obviously fueling your training a little bit more. So it's going to get more glycogen, a little more glucose going through the training as you're fatiguing off basically as well. Then your post-workout meal is probably the one that's most crucial as well. There's no such thing as an anabolic window post-training to get in a certain amount of carbs, a certain amount of protein, but you still do need a good set of carbohydrates post-training to recover. Because obviously during your training you are now diminishing glucose and glycogen, so your energy and also your glycogen stores, because your muscle is breaking that down in order to perform. Now, post-training, you're going to want some fast absorption type carbohydrates, or high glycemic, we call it as well. Now, this tends to come in the forms of cream of rice, Cocoa Pops, cereals, again, maltodextrin powder, stuff like that, bananas, rice cakes. You can use those. You can, of course, use pastas, rices, bread, bagels. There's no issues with that whatsoever. But I tend to go for more fast absorption, just simply because I want to replenish the glycogen and replenish the glucose that I have now lost during training to be able to recover and then start repairing and regrowing basically the tissues that I have damaged. So those are the types of the reasons why we have those around the training window, and I wouldn't tend to go for other types of carbohydrates. And of course you still want to be quite smart with it, with your type of carbohydrates that don't affect your gut health. So like you might have bagels, but you know bagels always make you bloat, right? Don't eat it because it's going to make you bloat, and then you're going to go into your training feeling very lethargic, very shit, feel very sick, and you're not going to have a good training session. So you want to have the right carbs that digest with you well, but also respond very well to get your recovery in place.